Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and executive chairman of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast, and in turn, continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
A lot of people think that, in the pet industry, people just spend the money and they don't care. Yes, they will pay for expensive product as long as the products deliver something that is different, that is materially better.
You know, most people view their dogs as more than just pets. They view them as family members. So when they bring them to the groomer, they want to be sure that they're well cared for. Many dog owners are willing to pay a premium for that kind of certainty.
People want to exercise, they want to eat better, they want to sleep better, they want to do everything better. And that translates to how they want to treat their pets too.
My name is Tom Ryan, and this is Welcome to the Arena, the ICR podcast. Each week, I sit down with today's business leaders to give you an inside scoop on some of America's most prosperous public companies, their origins, their challenges, and the keys to their success. Our guest today is Ricardo Azevedo, the CEO of Woof Gang Bakery and Grooming, America's largest premium pet brand. With more than 2 decades of experience leading global retail and franchise brands, Ricardo has a proven track record in brand expansion, operational excellence, and franchise development. Prior to Woof Gang, Ricardo held senior leadership roles at Restaurant Brands International, where he worked across iconic brands including Tim Hortons and Burger King. He served as president of Tim Hortons US. He's led international operations across EMEA for Burger King and held executive roles overseeing marketing, innovation, and sales strategy in North America. That global perspective and deep expertise in franchising has really shaped his approach to building purpose-driven, scalable brands. Let's enter the arena with Ricardo Azevedo. Before we get into Woof Gang and all things pets, you know, as I said in my introduction, you previously worked at RBI, iconic portfolio brands including Burger King and Tim Hortons, among others. Talk about your experience there and how it kind of led you to this opportunity.
Yeah, it's a great question, Ton. And I started in RBI in the end of 2010. Was just after the acquisition of 3G, was back in Burger King back in the days.
Yep.
And I was a consultant, worked for Accenture. I love what we were doing, and I moved to the brand itself in mid-2011. I joined the marketing team, so did a lot of more market intelligence, research, strategy work in the beginning.
Yep.
And I started evolving in the marketing team at Burger King all the way to become ultimately the CMO for the brand in North America. It was a very exciting role. We did a lot of interesting, exciting things back in the days. And RBI was a great culture, great school, many different brands. From there, I went to Europe, where I held more franchising roles in Switzerland, in Spain. Then I was back in Canada, more on the sales side of the Tim Hortons brand. And in the last role, in the last 3-4 years that I was in RBI, I was the president of the Tim Hortons brand for the US business.
Wow.
It was also very exciting. Brand, more close to a neighborhood brand, different than the Burger King I had previously worked before.
Yep.
Also very exciting brand. So RBI was amazing. And in all the time that I spent over there, just working multiple functions across franchise systems, doing marketing, doing more the franchising, doing more management roles, working the international market, was just such a great experience. And that's what led me to the love to the franchise industry to start with. And then in my last years in RBI, I was very knowledgeable about the industry, I would say, here in the US and what was going on, brands that were good, what takes to be a successful growing brand in the US. And I learned to be a very successful brand, you need a couple of things to play in your role. I think number one, being an exciting industry, an industry that still have a long way to grow, a lot of white space. The pet industry is just so exciting. You need a great brand, and I love the Woof Gang and the brand itself. Franchisees need to make money, and I looked at the P&L for Woof Gang relative to the cash flow and the investment related to it. So it was just a great brand altogether. And when you put all those factors combined, I knew this brand could grow tremendously in the US, and that's what led me to join in the middle of 2022.
It's exciting to go from larger brands like that to something that's fast growing with lots of opportunity. Not that Tim Hortons and Burger King doesn't have that opportunity, but this is just smaller with tons of white space. For those that don't know Woof Gang, maybe just give an overview of the business and what you all do every day.
So Woof Gang is, we call ourselves to be your dog's happiest place on earth. And I think we kind of getting there. Like it's a brand basically, but the core of the business is on the grooming business. And I think the grooming industry is something that is extremely fragmented. It's hard to find a brand that you trust and also have enough process standards to make sure you're putting your dog in the right place. So there is a tremendous opportunity in getting the grooming industry in the more professional place and providing grooming in a way that we believe is superior to what it's out there. And I think that's what we proud ourselves to be. I think Woof Gang provide the personalized, differentiated grooming experience to pet parents. And we also have a very different and engaging retail experience that is more focused on treats, more focused on celebration, more focused on things that are very natural and unique that we sell in our stores that you can really find in your traditional, more larger pet retailer. We also a small boutique, so the owner is there every day. The level of service, the level of knowledge about the products and the service completely different when you end up in one of those more traditional large pet retail stores where you won't have that service close to where you were purchasing. When you enter in a Woof Gang, you see this beautiful treats table full of decorated cookies that look like they were crafted for humans to consume. And it's just a fun environment that pet lovers end up loving it.
Talking about grooming, just going back to that for a minute, really a flagship offering for you. I have a dog. We bring our dog to an individual's home and drop the dog off in the morning and pick the dog up. And there's all kinds of mayhem and craziness in this person's house every day. But it seems to me that it's either kind of a mom and pop in this business or maybe a big box. And Woof Gang seems to have threaded the needle right in the middle, more like a boutique. You know, maybe talk about how you fit in that fragmented industry. And how would you consider your total addressable market? Because it has to be gigantic.
Yeah, Anton, I think that's basically one of the biggest drivers that made me move to Woof Gang 4 years ago, is when I realized that it's such a large service category that was so not well addressed by any player so far. And in one side, exactly like you said, you have the two big, I would say, big boxes, Petco, PetSmart. They have like 3,000 stores across the US. That's not the core of their business. That's not what they do every day, you know. So they are providing the service. Most pet parents don't feel comfortable, don't feel they get the service indoors. And in the other side, you have places like you take your dog, or many people take, there are really independent pet store or grooming house that some are going to be good, depending on who the groomer is there. Some are not going to be as good because there is no process, no standards, no approach how to do grooming. And if you look across the industry, you had many other examples of brands, especially in the franchising infrastructure, that closed that gap, right? Like in the massage industry. You didn't have a massage envy 15 years ago, and then suddenly you have thousands of stores over there. You didn't have a European Wax back 10, 15 years ago in the footprint that they have today, and they come and they consolidate that market. So I thought that there was a big space for someone to do similar in the grooming industry. And the Woof Gang brand is just the perfect setup to do it. And we had a base already with 150 stores when we acquired. It was intrinsic to the brand to be a grooming place. We saw great execution, great customer feedback. So what we did since then is just take that standard and process to another level so we could replicate that experience that we were seeing in the Woof Gangs that we fought in a faster way, but maintaining the standard, the neighborhood feel. And it's the perfect combination that I think our consumers love, getting to a place that you know it's neighborhood, you know the owner, but at the same time, you feel the standards, you feel the safety behind, you know that there is procedures that are standards to that place, that you have a brand behind that you can trust on. So that combination, I think, is what's allowing us to expand the grooming business in the way that we are doing today.
Yeah. And what is the current footprint of the business? How many units do you have and the mix of company-owned and franchised? And what's the ideal community for Woof Gang?
Yeah, I think that's when we acquired, we're 150 stores, Tom. They were 100% franchise already.
Got it.
The previous founder of the brand already found as a franchise system. He never really had company stores.
Yeah.
And based on my previous experience of running franchise business, I really believe on being a franchisor is very different than being a franchisee.
Yeah.
And across, I think the simplicity of being focused on managing a brand instead of managing stores, and the level of expertise that you're going to hire in your team and the focus that you can give. I like the concept of being fully franchised. So we kept that way.
Asset light too.
Exactly. And in the end of the day, it's different hats, and you need to do one very well. And we are a franchisor, and that's what we focus on. So we never had company stores, and when we acquired in 2022, we did not plan to have any. Instead, we plan to focus on defining the standards, investing in the team to support our franchisees, not to support our own stores. And I think we don't have any conflict of interest that way. So we didn't cap it that way. So we were 150 stores when we acquired in mid 2022. We're now 330 stores as we speak. Every month that pass by, between 5 to 8 more stores we build every month. And I think what's more exciting than the growth, Tom, is really the performance of the stores and the sustainability of the model. You know, like if you look the stores that we opened since 2025, their Google reviews are like 4.9 stars. You know, it's really great service that proves that we can replicate what we originally thought in a larger way, maintaining what you just mentioned, the neighborhood aspect of the brand and where this brand works. And that's, I think, to your other question on addressable markets that I believe is gigantic.
Yeah.
Is it works in any neighborhood that has pets, that is many in the store. And
that's, I mean, pretty simple.
It's pretty simple. Our footprint is a 1,500 square feet store that probably one of the most common real estate available. The business working in many of those grocery anchor centers where people go to do their day-to-day service. So that's the other aspect that I think is allowing us to keep that pace of growth is real estate availability. It's very hard to build brands when you need a drive-through, or you need 4,000 square feet, or you need 400 square feet. That is not common either. But the size of our box, the type of development that we need, it's really one of the most common real estates available in America. So we've been developing the brand that started pretty much in Florida, Carolina, Texas. We opened places like Midwest, Northeast, open a lot of stores, California, Arizona, Denver, and all the new stores are actually performing even better than the stores we had in those development markets, proving that the concept travel very well to very different pet communities out there. And yeah, I think we're excited on how it is. But it's more higher income, right? Like this is one thing for, I think, any more service business on the grooming. Like you need to be a little bit higher than average income, but that's about it. And you can have a very successful Woof Gang.
Well, you mentioned a couple of times something that's incredibly important in terms of creating value, which is the portability of the brand and showing that it can go outside of where it was founded. And when you came in as CEO, what were like the 2 or 3 key initiatives that you implemented early on that maybe professionalized the organization a little bit more or allowed you to have a foundation to grow so quickly?
Yeah, no, a great question. I think one that we took a lot of time in the beginning to set up a system that could grow in a very sustainable way, I think was my main concern, because grow fast, anybody can grow fast, but you won't grow for too long if you don't set up an infrastructure to support the franchisees. So when we acquired the brand was amazing. It had all the aspects that it has today. We maintain all that, the neighborhood aspect, the type of retail, the love to grooming. This was all part of the brand. What we did not have, given the profile of the previous founder, that is brilliant, amazing, but he did not have the infrastructure and the funds to really build to grow in the pace that we are growing today. So I think a lot of the time that we spent in the first couple of years with the brand was really developing the team that I knew would be able to build the infrastructure that we need to grow. Then you have technology was one, like we have to change the whole technology to manage the stores. I think one of the most important one was creating a training and a support to have standards and process around the grooming.
Yep.
That is a very unique thing. So that was all developed based on the great stores that we had. So we knew what great was, but those procedures, those was never reading. The training on how to get a new franchisee to do it was not widely available back then. Then we hired an amazing person that actually, Bianca, she had a store before, one of the best ones.
Yep.
And she built what we call the Woof Gang Way and the Woof Gang University. So that allowed us to bring a completely new franchisee that never heard about grooming, get him access to all trainings he needs to, spend a week in Orlando hearing about the brand, hearing about how the grooming industry works, hearing about how greatness and the Woof Gang Way needs to be, and they can then go and execute that in their store. So I think those are kind of the technology, the process, and also all the process to support the franchisee afterwards, having a very strong field team, having support. On the development front was another thing, right? Like once franchisee up and going is great, but like how do you choose the sites? How do we then negotiate leads for our franchisees? How we support them to the construction process? How we have designs that are standards and that they can execute without having to reinvent the wheel all the time.
Just make it as easy as possible for them, right?
100%. And all those were we created them all from scratch. And that was great. That's why I love this project so much. Because although we got an amazing brand, to be able to grow in the scale that we want to grow and to get to the size that I think we believe we can get, all that had to be created. And I mean, we're still getting better. We're still evolving day over day. But there was a lot that was done in order for us to be able to grow the path that we are growing right now. The real estate was a big one too. Right now, I have an amazing real estate team that know how to look at sites, that understand, that has intelligence behind, and allow us to really be growing in a more consistent way, I would say.
So Ricardo came to Woof Gang with a ton of experience in restaurant franchising, but obviously a dog grooming business is going to present its own unique set of challenges. I asked him what he saw as the biggest differences in operating within these two distinct industries.
Look, franchising definitely has something in common about the accountability in the other side that is extremely important for success. That is true everywhere. I do think when you think about restaurant versus services, the involvement and the buildup of the sales in the beginning is very different. You know, like in the restaurant, you open your door and likely you're very close to get what you're going to be getting based on your real estate. The brands are known and all that. On the service category, it's a more ramp up in the beginning. You need to build a clientele, then they come back, then you get another one and they come back. So the building up to the clientele in the beginning, we see that it's extremely important to have a neighborhood, to have the owner involved in the beginning, to build the team, to get the business going with the mindset that is required with and all that. So I think that would be the biggest difference, and that's how we different the strategy that all those larger brands had in the restaurant side versus what we need to grow this brand is the profile of the franchisees. I think that is very different as well. You know,
how do you select your franchise partners? What do you probably interviewed or met thousands of franchisees over your career. You must be able to read people right away. Like what do you look for not only in the individual, but their financial wherewithal, like their ability to do it? How do you size franchisees up?
And this is, I think, the crucial aspect of building great brands is how you select franchisees. They're not only great franchisees, but great franchisees for the brands you are working on. You know, and I think back to the question on what is the difference from the restaurants to a brand like Woof Gang in a smaller scale, smaller investment, more requirement of involvement in the beginning. The profile of the franchisee changed a lot. You know, Tom, I think in Woof Gang, we spend a lot of time, of course, knowing and getting to know the owners to make sure it's like a marriage, right? You need to make sure they really understand what they're getting into it. You need to understand if they come into the business with the right mindset. And I think that's the most important one. Because if you try to read too much on their abilities and all that they can learn, they can change, it's very hard. But the mindset of why they're doing this business has to be the right one. And our business is not a passive investment, Don. If you're getting to this business just to open your doors and hope they will cash flow, it might happen, but it's not what we are looking for. We're looking for owners that first, they need to love the pet industry. Otherwise, go work on someone else. I think they love and they need to build that magic of Woof Gang in the neighborhood has to be the driver. If you don't get there, and if it's very unlikely that it's going to work. And then once you have that, financial requirements is extremely important. If franchisee try to do something that is more than what they can do, at some point it's going to be very challenging. So of course, some people are more risk takers than others, but as a brand, we need to define what it's reasonable, and we do that through the financial analysis that we do in each one of them to make sure nobody's coming here with more risk that their financial can tolerate to take.
Yep.
And that changes a lot on the restaurant versus service business too. Like to build a restaurant is $1 to $2-3 million investment. Our stores build between $300,000 and $400,000. You can open one of our stores. So we are talking of completely different financial investment that allow for much more entrepreneurs to try it at the first time, at a much lower risk that they need of those high investment in other business. So I think the type of investment for our business and other service business allow for a lot of new entrepreneurs that want to change careers and want to try something that they love to try the brand. And that's what I love. I love seeing people getting to the business, building something different for them and trying something that they never tried before. And this is really exciting.
It must be incredible to see somebody really hit it out of the park and do well. It changes their life, right?
Change their life and with something that they love. And it's extremely rewarding to see.
That's really cool. And one question, I think probably the biggest risk in franchising, and way better than me, would be franchisees over time kind of starting to do things their own way and maybe compromising the brand. I'm sure the work you put in when you first joined, all the standardization and stuff, really reduces the risk of the brand being diluted or people kind of doing their own thing in their own markets. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, no, and it is a big concern. I think in any franchise system that want to grow sustainably, I think having the standard, the procedures in the right place is extremely important. And to be honest, when we acquired the brand, that was not one of the strengths of the brand. It was kind of the opposite. Every franchisee was kind of doing their own way in some sense. So that's what we spend most of the time in the beginning, Tom, like developing what we believe is the standard to execute in the Woof Gang way. But I'll be honest, once you train them, once they start doing, it's the best way to run the business too. So I think the way to get things right, you don't get to you can do different, yes, but if you want to be successful, they end up following, because we didn't invent the procedures out of our mind or anything.
Yeah.
They were the collection of the greatness that was out there between all the great Woof Gang owners. So that we've been able to successfully, I think, implement, and the scores that we get, the feedback that we get from consumers shows that we are in the right track on that area, being able to kind of bring to life what this magic happens through training the franchisees in the way that you're training. We have a lot of tools as well. We invest a lot in having the training, the online training, not only having a team that can support franchisees when they need to decide and take any situation. So yeah, I think it's an extremely important area of any franchise business, and you need to invest the time and the energy to be able to get there.
So let's talk about the pet industry. When you're getting into a business, it sure helps when you've got a really big and fast-growing industry with a lot of opportunity. People talk about the humanization of pets. Every dog owner that I know, the dog is part of the family. And maybe talk a little bit about that, number one. And then number two, are younger people in their 20s getting pets as much as maybe the older generation? Maybe speak to that.
Yeah, no, it's a great industry. I think the love, the passion is there, and that, of course, reflects in the spending. It's an industry that has been growing, and throughout different cycles of the economy, it shows it resilient. And it is a very resilient industry. People usually would tend to spend the money they need to spend with their dogs. I think there was a big boom post-COVID that kind of
Yep.
drove some of the numbers up for a while. And now the past 3 years haven't been as exciting as when, dog ownership during COVID, I think was 3-4 folds the adoption of dogs
Jeez.
versus the years before. And
I believe it.
but that they catch up afterwards, it's so
Like a pull forward.
exactly, it just pull forward a little bit, and the consumption now it's probably more closer to the normal growth rate, and the growth is positive. The growth is for people to think more about the healthy and the wellness of their pets. Like they start to think more about themselves. The same changes that people talk a lot about. People now treat pets like themselves. Yeah, and we also learn more about how to treat ourselves better also in the past 10 years, right? Like a lot of topics that were not so concerning for everyone 10 years ago, they now are. People want to exercise, they want to eat better, they want to sleep better, they want to do everything better. And that translates to how they want to treat their pets too. They want their pets to have a better life, to be able to live longer and better as they get older. And that translates to everything that they do. I do think there is also, a lot of people think that, in the pet industry, people just spend the money and they don't care. It could be in the post-COVID time. I do also believe that people spend the money they need to spend and they want to spend it right. So yes, they will pay for expensive product as long as the products deliver something that is different, that is materially better. The idea that people will spend money, I'd never been the mindset that we had at Woof Gang. And I always believe, coming from another industry, that you need to provide great service for great price. And that's the combination that will drive the best growth and the most sustainable growth. And I think that is very true in the pet industry. If an owner come and think that on pet you can price whatever people will pay, they will pay a few times. They won't keep paying forever.
They won't come back, and
they won't come back, and it's not sustainable. So I think in any industry, something that you need to provide great products at great price and things that are materially better than the competition always. And that's going to be sustainable growth that is no different than other industry. But yes, it's an industry that is extremely exciting. I think people are treating pets you see the younger generation more and more increasing their pets, even before having kids or replacing the kids with pets, and all sorts in between is happening. And that drives more because the passion is there, and, more life change, and pets are always part of their life cycle, even in the older generation, on how pets help them when they get to their third stage of their lives, also extremely important today. And this is a big part of our customers in Woof Gang.
So we're sitting here in June of 2026, 6 months left in the year. When you look out to the rest of 2026 and into 2027, Ricardo, what are the 2 or 3 things that you're most excited about? I always feel like any good company, you can only do a few things really well in any given year. What are you focused on, and what are you most excited about over the next year and a half or 2 years?
Yeah, so I think the beauty about Woof Gang, the things we've been focused about, excited, are the same in the past 4 years. Is how do we continue to get our stores to new communities in a sustainable way? I think our growth is part of who we are, is part of what's going to drive even more growth to our own brands. The more people know, the more ad fund we have, the more we can bring customers in. So the growth is the engine, what's going to keep Woof Gang growing to the place that we need to be. The other thing that we've been spending a lot of time on is how we have more private label products, and how we make our distribution of our own products easier, better, and cheaper for our franchise owners. And I think that's a big power of our brand as well. There's very differentiated than many brands out there. Our brand is amazing, goes very well with many products that we do. Once we place the Woof Gang brand in any product, it sells more than a non-Woof Gang brand. And so we're expanding a lot our proprietary line just with products that we test, that we love, that we believe fits very well with the brand. And that also can help the franchisee executions a lot. It's simpler for them to order, they get faster. So investing a lot of time and energy on how we grow what we call the Woof Gang private label distribution business. And that didn't exist 2 years ago. So I'm really, really excited on how that is going. And we think this is going to be a big lever for us to continue to expand the brand in consumers' mind.
That was Ricardo Azevedo, CEO of Woof Gang Bakery and Grooming. They are America's largest premium pet grooming brand with a great market and a great niche offering. And since joining as CEO, Ricardo and his team have stepped on the gas, significantly accelerating company store growth, and they have a huge amount of white space ahead of them. I'm Tom Ryan, and we'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.